Because you can't just, the book's 500 pages long, so you can't just sit down and start writing all the story flows out. So I always do what's called a storyboard, where you kind of map out the story. And every story kind of follows a formula, like a bit of a form, in terms of what's the initiating action, what gets things started, what's the rising action, so what's the climax, and what's the resolution to the story. So I map all that out. And actually, the storyboard I have is about 40 feet long, probably stretched from here to maybe mid-wall, and about 4 feet high. And I use that, and I actually use sticky notes on that 40-foot sheet to lay out the story. And I lay out in 7 parts, 7 major parts. And actually, the books, both books are broken into 7 major parts. Okay? There's numerous chapters within the parts, but I lay out the parts. And once I've got that laid out, and it took me 3 months to do it for Fool's Gold, because I laid the characters out as well on that. And it took me about 2 months to do it for Legend of the Phantom Reaper, because as I was writing Fool's Gold, I had an idea for the second. Once I get them laid out, though, that's when I start writing. And I write, Corinne will attest to this, about 3 to 4 hours a day, 5 or 6 days a week. And I do what's called the down draft, the first draft. And that's the most fun. You just sort of dump the story out. You follow the roadmap, but you dump the story out. And even as I'm writing, there's a lot of stuff I'm writing that I know won't make it to the final edition, the final edit, but I still write it because I have to get the story out. If I keep stopping myself and editing during that downdraft, I'll never get the story out. So you got to get your story out. And that's the most fun, getting that out. That took about a year and a half, year and a quarter. Toughest part is the updraft, the second draft, where you sort of say, does this make sense as a story? Okay, are there gaps in the story I need to fill in? Is there too much in the story? Is it boring? Are there exciting parts versus boring parts? I need to smooth that out. Do the characters all make sense? Do they all flow properly? Do they sound realistic? And as I say, this book was 500 pages long, it's finished. After I did the downdraft, it was 650 pages long. So during that updraft, when I was editing, I cut out 150 pages. I even cut out an entire character. In the original draft, there was a guy named Owen. He was a hermit who lived back in 1908. And I wrote him through the whole story. And then when I reread it, the second draft, I said, he's not really helping the story. He's actually getting in the way sometimes. So I may use him for the third book, but he wasn't making, he wasn't adding to the second one. So actually, I took him out. I had unbook him for every single scene he was in, and then rewrite the scenes around him, put it back together. And then I do at least 2 more edits after that, the polish edit and the copy edit.
Hey, I like it.
Good. Yes. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I just wondered if someone had it.
Yeah, I have a lot of test readers, okay? And I was going to thank them at the end, but I have to thank them right now. So I have a lot of test readers who went through numerous drafts and gave me suggestions for it. In particular, I thank my 3 sons, basically. Jordan, Morgan, and Brody, who did a lot of edits for me, did a lot of reading of it. I also have old school teachers and things like that do it, but these 3 did a lot of editing for me and continue to be the inspiration for the stories as well. Okay, because if you meld my 3 sons together, you get the character of Brody. And even their names, when you put them all together, you get Brody. So they continue to be the inspiration for the stories. And then I'd probably like to particularly thank Brody, okay, who went kind of above me on the Call of Duty, and because he read and reread countless editions, countless drafts, and there were countless drafts. So, and he read and reread them and worked with me on correcting the mistakes, and also giving me suggestions to make the story better, including the suggestion for adding a new 4-legged character into this book that wasn't in the first one.
Maybe go to the break as well. What's my cut?
I will talk. Julie, you had a question?
Those 3 was
Yeah, so this is,
I just wondered where you got the inspiration for
that is,
Hollywood.
probably it's a combination of a lot of things. Okay, it's characters in movies, but also I did a lot because the kids go back in time to 1908, so a lot of this takes place back then. So I did a lot of research on people back then too, and things back then. And based on some of the historical characters I found too, I just took bits and pieces and sort of images too, and created the 3 triplets.
Visualize them.
Yeah, sure, yeah. And because they are triplets, These two are identical. He's a little different. Morton's the eldest by 17 minutes. Okay? So he's the boss. Maui, kind of is the whimpery guy. This is very deep voice, he's the whimpery guy. Boyle, he just takes orders from Morton. Okay? In the whole book, he only says about 7 words. Okay? And that's at the very end. Okay? Because the whole time he's taking direction from, he relies on Morton to tell him what to do.
Is he an engineer?
That's weird. How many schools do they go to? Okay. Well,
Thousands.
to do readings or to
become an
Okay,
author.
yes, okay. So I went to grade school, like you, and high school, and then to university. Okay, I took English in university. Okay, because I wanted to become a writer right after university, but it was hard to make a living as a full-time writer. So I went back to school and became an accountant. Numbers, and then but I always did freelance writing. So I kind of combined both worlds. And even in my spare time, when I was working for the last 30 years, I always wrote stories and articles for newspapers and magazines. I wrote about 200-300. So I always kept my finger in it, knowing that when I retire, I want to write full time. Did that answer your question? Okay, good. All right, yes.
Now that you've done 2 books, what's your biggest stumbling block you find as a writer? Have you hit that yet?
Yeah, because every writer gets writer's block, or just some days you don't feel like doing it. I like to write every day though, because that keeps a story in my head. Okay? If you write for a day or two and then take a week off and write for a day or two, you got to keep relearning the story every time you come back to it. So I like to, once I start the writing, once I've done the storyboard, I like to write, as I say, 5 to 6 days a week. Okay? It keeps it fresh in my head. But there are days when you say, oh. So when I get into those situations, I look back to the storyboard. Okay, and I ask myself, so I look at the storyboard, which is my map, and I say, why did I start writing this story to begin with? Because I've got a story to tell. And do I still think it's a good story? Yes. I look at that. I kind of look at the roadmap and say, yeah, it's still a good story. It's still worth telling. Get back to work.
Right, so it's not like it would be maybe particularly characterization or plot. It can be anything.
That's right, yeah. Because I got the plot laid out in the storyboard, and I got all the characters laid out in the storyboard too. So and that's really important to do that ahead of time, not to sort of create this stuff as you're going, because you can get stuck in it. Okay? Is to have that roadmap. Okay, so because sometimes when I'm writing, if I get bored with a certain spot, I'll just jump to another spot. I'll start in the middle. I may write the end and come back because I've got the map in front of me. I know what the story is going to be. Right? So that also helps you get past stumbling blocks as well. Because I'm kind of bored writing this section, I'm going to jump to the middle and start writing that, and remotivate myself basically and come back. Yeah. Yes.
I think Gordon's got a
Yeah, for those of us who purchase the book, what's your favorite chapter?
Yeah. So probably, but they do have a favorite chapter. In Legend of the Phantom Reaper, it's a chapter where the cold case kids first meet the title character, the Phantom Reaper. Okay? And that actually, I have to know, it's chapter 22 in the book. Close to the middle. And they actually come face to face with the Phantom Reaper for the first time. And that was a lot of fun to write, and I really like that chapter. I like the one just before it too, the lead up to it, and then that chapter. So that's probably my favorite chapter.
Do you intend to actually go to audiobooks for this one, or just...
A lot of people are asking about that.
I listen to books now, I just don't read it anymore. This is I read your first one. I need to listen to it. I'm on the road.
That's right, yeah. So I'm thinking about it, but I haven't got any plans for that yet, no.
And if you do decide to do that, do you think you're going to do the voice acting, or are you going to do it yourself? Because that's a big
Part of it, that's right. Yeah. I'd love to do
it.
it.
It makes a difference.
Yeah, I'd love to do the reading, because I really enjoy doing the
You
reading.
probably would, it's really fun.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's still a thought, because a lot of people ask that.
Hey, you should go for it.
Yeah.
So, like, there are a number of exciting and intense moments in the book, but how do you decide how do you select this couple chapters to read for school?
Yeah, because I kind of want to introduce them to some exciting parts, okay, and get them into the story. So in these 2 chapters, I read them 3 chapters, read them the next chapter as well after this one. but it takes them back to 1908, because it is a story about time travel, about going back in time. It takes them back. It introduces them to 3 of the evil characters in the book. But these aren't the only 3. These aren't the only evil characters in the book. Okay, there's a couple of others that haven't met. But I want to introduce them to some of the evil characters. I also like the idea of starting off with the cave and the treasure, because it usually captures kids' attention as well. And I like the idea that it goes from the cave into the graveyard, because as a kid I always loved stories of graveyards. So I just try to pick something that will keep them interested, is exciting, there's a lot of animation in it, introduce them to the evil characters, gives them a sense of the story, but doesn't reveal too much either. Okay? Because there's just hints of a Phantom Reaper in these chapters. Yet the whole book is called The Legend of Phantom Reaper. So I haven't gone overboard and given away the Phantom Reaper story, the whole legend of the mystery that we're trying to solve, but I've hinted at it. And so we're trying to basically snag and pull. And I leave them really hanging with the end of the 3rd chapter, so that they read more.
Do you want to talk for just a minute about the illustrations or the illustrator?
Sure, yeah.
Because
The
some people
illustrator's
might
Rob.
not, yeah.
Is Rob Elliott?
But we need to
Oh. Like these types or?
Who's the one?
You know me, sir. That's it, yeah. Maybe else can grab it again. So Rob Elliott is the name of the illustrator. He's in Toronto right now and has a studio there. I actually used to live in Kincardine about 10 or 12 years ago. And he was in college professor. Okay, so, and now he's in Toronto. And when I wrote the first book, I had him in mind, and I actually talked to Christine about it, whether he'd be interested, and she thought he would be. So I contacted him, sort of laid out the storyline for him, and he thought it was great, so he hopped on board. And then he jumped into the second one as well, and hopefully he'll do the second 2 as well. Because I think he captured it really well. And there's like about 12 full-page black and white illustrations in each of the books, as well as spot diagrams, which are small diagrams. This is one of the black and whites in the book. We just colored it up with a poster and the green. See that there? Okay, come on, let's see. Yeah, by all means, stay on.
So what's the grade range, would you say, Doug?
I say over 8.
Over 8.
And the ideal ages are probably 8 to 12, 8 to 13, but I always say 8 to 99 because you're never too old for an adventure.